The economy today is obviously, it generates enormous wealth for some people and far less wealth and opportunity for other people. But what strikes me in particular is that we live in an age in which we celebrate especially the kind of triumph of human freedom and the triumph of our autonomy. We see that obviously in the advance of a kind of sexual agenda and the belief that we can simply live in a world without limits, boundaries, or any kind of the old moral codes. But at the same time, we talk about the economy in terms in which we no longer control it. We talk about globalization as being an inevitable process. We talk about the economy as having its own logic. We talk about certain kinds of demands that the economy makes of us or that the market makes of us as if it's an autonomous entity that's no longer under our control. Pope Francis, along with his predecessors, Benedict XVI and John Paul II, all argued that an economy has to be evaluated on the basis of whether or not it's providing goods that go beyond goods that we can think of as merely economic. That is to say, it can't be evaluated merely on gross domestic product or merely on the kinds of money that it's generating for the economy. That it ultimately has to be evaluated on the basis, is it supporting forms of human flourishing, particularly health of families and health of communities, and a consideration of the impact of our economic decisions upon the environment and upon the world that we hope that future generations will also enjoy.
I'd like to spend my money with my neighbors. I'd like to spend my money in locally owned businesses and make my finances, how shall I say, reflect my values. It's nearly impossible, especially if you don't live in a metropolitan area. If you're rural, if you're in underserved areas, you're simply going to have to drive, and maybe you don't want to drive to get your basic needs met. And it's a continual stumbling block. Connection and communion is everything. It's everything. It's the center of who we are. And so having nameless, faceless transactions degrades that and flies in the face of that. So every time we can have a transaction with a human being whom we know, for whom we can express love directly, that's the moral choice.
Part of the problem in American politics is we only consider politics as statecraft. And so it's hard for a lot of Americans to think of politics in any broader sense than whatever the Republicans or the Democrats are doing. What I think this conference can do, the Front Porch Republic, is focus us more on localism, on what we can do locally to thicken our communities, to strengthen our communities, to be more faithful to Christ and to be more devoted to each other and to place. We're in a time of great volatility culturally and economically and politically in this country, and we have to be what Pope Benedict said are creative minorities. And as such, we can start small businesses, we can start schools. The classical school movement, for example, is becoming very, very popular among Catholics as well as Protestants. Little things like that God can use for His purposes. And I think that if you have enough people doing small things together in harmony, you can have big changes.